I'm Tom Lamog. I am an instructor with the cyber chapter of Guitars for Vets, and here with the folks at CavArts.
Some familiar faces, a lot of new faces. And I would say if you are brand new to guitar and this is kind of your orientation, take your time with it. This is an amazing journey.
What does that mean? So I've plucked, now it's time to adjust. I'm going to go ahead and turn the tuning peg to a point where it's closer to being in tune, but not overshooting my targets.
I'll take something that's heavy, I'll put it in my hand, I'll hold the guitar slide in my hand, and I would just, it kind of helps steady my my picking hand.
I'm going to walk you up and I'll name the notes. So you've got an E, you have an F, you have an F sharp, you have a G.
Every finger you're fretting is a different note and it's got a different name. And that's why hence the chromatic scale.
Let's talk about these numbers right now. So 1 is going to be your index finger. Right. Hold it up, guys and ladies. 1.
And you'll notice between the E and the F and the B and the C, it's not a sharp or a flat. Those two notes are, if you think about a piano, it's those, there's that.
A whole bag of picks that I kind of snuck away from my brother, and my cousin was a professional touring guitarist for a long time.
Thank you for hanging out with us on Saturday afternoon, morning, whichever time zone you're in. And we look forward to next Saturday hooking up if you were able to. Hey everyone, it's Tom Lamog from Guitars for Vets. I am an instructor with the Cyber chapter, and I'd like to welcome you all to the introduction to acoustic guitar. We're going to be covering modules 2 and 3 today. And before we get started, I just want to let you know that we've got a couple of guest instructors join me on this call. We've got Bruce and Baldemar, both who will be presenting a little bit later. So everyone, let's get started. All right, y'all have your guitar, and let's make sure that what's the first thing we do with the guitar when you pick it up? It's definitely to start by tuning it. And you do remember last week we walked through that process. What you're going to do is if you're out of tune, you tune up and into the pitch. If you go over the pitch, then you go back underneath the pitch and redo it without going over. So go ahead and make sure that your guitar is in tune. That's one of the things that you always want to do when you start to play guitars. Pick up that tuner, put it on the headstock if that's what you use, or maybe you've got some other method through an app or so. But tuning up is definitely something that's essential. So my first question to all of you, and if maybe just a show of hands, how many of you made it through modules 2 and 3? All right. And even if you didn't, congratulations. That's awesome because, being able to go through the materials, there's a definitely, you have to be able to set aside that time. And I know in a busy world, it can be tough to do, but getting in just a little bit of time to practice, that's also essential. Right up there with tuning, it's kind of like if you can go ahead and maintain consistent practice, 5, 10, 15, 30 minutes, whatever you're able to fit in, definitely will get you closer to where you need to be. Okay. All right. So what else do we have here? What I ended up doing was actually, let me share my screen. I did make another copy. I created a new lesson plan. And what I'm going to do right now is just really quickly show you where it's at. Now, are you able to see the Guitars for Vets Learning Center on CavArts? You guys able to see that? Okay. So if you're trying to find the learning, actually the materials that we're going to be using for today's presentation, here's a look at the Guitars for Vets Learning Center on CavArts. And if you go to the event page itself, and you click on the event, and then you scroll down to the thread of comments, you're going to see right here, you just click on it, and there you go. You've got the presentation materials right there. All right. So this is what we're going to be using to lead the discussion today. All right. Okay. And I'm going to ask Bruce in Baltimore. I'm going to go ahead and have you on unmute. So if you want to go ahead and chime in, and if you have any comments along the way, by all means. The other thing that you should know is that if you do have a question, because everyone is muted right now, just go ahead and put it in the chat feature, and we'll go ahead and take a look at it throughout the hour that we're here. We'll try to answer those for you. All right. Okay. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and take a look at page 2 of the presentation materials. What we're going to cover in the session today, we're going to go ahead and talk a little bit about the posture for playing and holding the guitar. We'll revisit that since we're kind of there right now. And the posture, of course, is you want to sit in a place where you're able to go ahead and move around. You're able to stretch out. You're able to hold the guitar comfortably. And you're able to hold the guitar without, letting it slide forward, but you want to kind of keep it close to you, close to your body. You want to be able to, move your arms, move your knees, or tap your foot if you're able to do that. It's always important to have that posture where it needs to be before you start playing. And holding the guitar, of course, just as I said, bring it into your body. You don't want to lean it forward. So you're able to go ahead and strum with, with your wrist and with your arm if you need to. We're going to talk about naming each string by note and by number. We're going to revisit that because it's essential that when we jump into module 2, Baltimore is going to go ahead and show us a little bit more about, the significance of the fingers on the strings and in the frets. And we're going to be using numbers to do that. And then we're also going to talk about the scales, major scale particularly. Bruce is going to step us through the alphabet, the musical alphabet, A, B, C. Is I a note? No, it's not. And Bruce will explain a little bit more in detail about that. We're also going to read chord charts. And the important thing about reading chord charts, being able to do that, is, once you really learn how to play the guitar, what next? The next thing is, maybe you want to play a song, maybe a song maybe it's a song that someone else knows, and they want you to learn it so they can play music together with you. Could be any reason. But we're going to step you through how to read those chord charts, whether they be notes or chords. All right. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and switch over to the next page, which is reading a chord diagram. All right. So reading the chord diagram. I'm going to go ahead and put this up right now. Some of you may have seen, this diagram before, and this is something that the Guitars for Vets instructors have access to. And if you want to go ahead and make sure to take a copy of this presentation, you can refer to it. But simply put, it's a diagram. Chord diagram is just a picture of the fretboard with the guitar standing upright, just like this. So if you take a look at the diagram itself and you see, the horizontal lines, which represent the frets, the vertical lines, which represent the strings, this is how we build the diagrams. All right. And then we start to fill those diagrams with numbers and where you put your fingers. So this 1 on this string here basically means it's the first finger. And that's really the first string. And then the more circles that you put in, more fingers are placed there. Does that make sense, guys? All right. So here, let me just go through some of these numbers. Again, this is something that we covered last week, the numbering system that you should be familiar with. Let me stop this for just a moment. So first of all, there's a numbering system for your fingers. Index finger's 1. Let's all hold up the fingers as I call them out. Hold up your first finger and the first and second finger, the first and second and third finger, first, second, third, and fourth finger. All right. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4. Great. Then you've got the numbers on the strings, right? So the low The high E string, I'll start with the high E string, is number 1. High E string is 1. Then B is 2. And then G is 3, right? D is 4. 5 is A. And the low E string, the fixed string, is 6. So you got 1 through 6. Important to know. And then another number that you need to know is the fret number. So the first wire, you're placing your finger behind that first fret wire for fret 1 and 2 and 3, 4 and 5, and so on and so forth. So these are the numbers that you should memorize. You should make that a part of your practice routine as well. So let me do this here. I am going to go back to the slide presentation and look at, reading a chord diagram. And, again, this is the finger on the first fret, first string. And this is what a chord diagram will look like. And then this is the first finger on the second string and the second finger on the third string of the second fret. And that's what that diagram will look like. Now, there are times, as you probably guessed, that when you take a look at a chart, you only have so much real estate on that piece of paper or maybe that chart. And sometimes chords aren't always on the open frets, like frets 1, 2, and 3. So this is an example of that. Fret 5, this is where we're actually placing the finger on the first string of fret 5. You're going to see that number in the diagram as well too, when it's not an open fret. So this obviously means fret 5. This is 6 and 7, but just as long as you know that this 5 means this is the 5th fret, that's really the key right there. All right, makes sense so far? Good. All right, so the last thing I'm going to cover, what we know, where to place your fingers at, when to play and when not to play. So let's take a look at this diagram here, where it has the X's and the O's and these dark circles. Well, we know that here's what we're going to strum. So we've got a finger on this string and this fret, and another finger on this string and this fret. And then we see this diagram here with X's and O's. The X's means don't play those strings, right? And the arrows will mean that you do play these strings. And these blank circles, these are open. These are basically, you don't have to put your finger down, but you do have to play the string. So X's means don't play the strings. The O's mean do play these open strings. And then these are the blue dots where you place your fingers and you're going to play those strings. And this confirms that, all right, you're going to play all these strings. So that is the overview of reading a chord diagram. I'm not sure if there are any questions that have appeared. I'm going to guess no. Let me go ahead and turn this off again. Stop the share. No, I'm not seeing anything in the chat, so let's go ahead and continue on. With that said, I would like to introduce you to Baltimore, who is also one of our instructors here. And Baltimore, how you doing today?
Hi, y'all.
Great to see you. Great to see you. And Baltimore, he when I did talk with him originally a while back. Whoops, I need to admit a couple people here. He was one of our students, one of our graduates, one of our recent graduates who came on board to help out some of the other veterans through guitar instruction. Baltimore, why don't you talk a little bit about yourself, and then why don't you go ahead and take us right into reading chord charts?
Of course, yes. It's a great pleasure to be here with you guys. I'm a combat veteran from the Gulf War. I was in the infantry in the 90s, 90 and 94. And well, to cope with the stresses and all that of the situations that I fell through in the war, I picked up the guitar and started playing, but never had any success. So, but a couple of years back during the pandemic, matter of fact, I started to pick it up again and watching YouTube videos. So I started, wasn't getting too far. So I learned about the Guitars for Vets program. I enlisted, and sure enough, Paul hooked me up with a great instructor, and he encouraged me to continue. So I did, and now here I am,
Cool,
trying to help
cool.
as many more people that I can. And it's been a wonderful experience, and I love it, and I wish to share with whoever I can.
Well, hey, man, thanks for the introduction. So why don't you go ahead and let's talk a little bit about reading chord charts. And now we've gone through taking a look at the fingering system, the procedures surrounding fretting and strings and fingers and such. Um, I'll go ahead and bring up the presentation once again. Do you want me to just go ahead and switch that to the
If you could go to
presentation?
the session where the E minor, the E major, and the ASAs are.
Yeah, let me go ahead and get that for you. How's
Uh,
that?
okay, good. All right, as you guys can see there on that diagram, we have labels on the fifth and on the fourth string on the second fret. On here for the E minor, we have a 1 and a 2, but that is not necessarily set in stone. You guys can put whichever fingers you feel are gonna be more comfortable, and it's gonna make it easier for you guys to play. In my case, my personal preference is to use fingers 2 and 3. Why? Okay, I'm gonna put finger 2 on the fifth string, second fret, finger 3 on the fourth string, second fret also. And I'm gonna make sure that I can get all those strings to ring out clearly. So that's the E minor. Why I use fingers 2 and 3? Basically because I can always just drop down finger 1 on the first fret, third string, and now I have an E major chord. So just by dropping that finger down right there on the third string, I've got another chord. It's of the same E family. But I can also remove finger 3, and now I have an E7. Whereas if I had 1 and 2 here, it was going to take more movements for me to be able to accomplish going through the E major here, from here, or through the E7. Does that make sense? Is everybody following? Excellent. So, Tom, can we get that slide back up?
Yes, sir.
All right, and then if we got the E minor, E7, and the E major chord straight, then all I'm gonna do is drop down those two fingers, one string, and I'm gonna be on the ASAS. And then I'm gonna make sure that all my notes are ringing clearly. And the reason I like doing this is because all I gotta do is just drop the pinky on the second string, of the second fret, and I got an A major chord. In the same case, all I gotta do is lift the third finger, and I got an A7. Is everybody following? Everybody okay? Do I need to explain something? You good?
Yeah. So what it looks like is that depending on maybe what chords you want to anticipate, is the fingering that you'll probably want to use in order to make that change quickly. Would that be true?
Yes, yes. So if we're gonna be going to a different chord from a certain E chord or E7, E6 or any, it may behoove you need to use 1 and 2 rather than the 3 and 4. But I've noticed, like I said, in my personal preference is that this is where I feel more comfortable, and it's been working out for me. A lot of times, because the chord progression would likely be that where I'm at now is where my next chord will probably land, or all I would have to do is just maybe move one finger, and be able to strum my next chord.
Very
But in order for us to be proficient on this, we're gonna have to, sometimes give us a little break and then go right back to it. That's gonna develop muscle memory, and that's gonna get you guys to understand where the chord is. So we'll go back to the E minor, strum it a couple of times to make sure we get good, clear notes, and then we can move down to the A sus, and then we can strum it. Give us a break, go back to it, and this is how we're gonna develop proficiency and muscle memory. We don't have to be quick. We don't have to be fast. We don't have to speed it up. As long as we take our time and learn a chord, it's gonna take us a day, 2 days, 3 days, maybe even up to a week before we can strum that chord like we want it to, like we want it to sound clear. But be patient to yourself. Give you enough time. Play those chords. And what I also suggest that we do is that instead of just strumming it once, we do like a 4-stroke strum, a four down strum. That will develop muscle memory, and that'll be ingrained in you, and it'll be easier to learn the chord. So once you get that memorized and you see it in a song, well, oh, I know it, I know how to play that. Then you can put it in there. Okay, so that's the E and the A sus chords, E minor and the A sus. Does anybody have any questions?
And let me go ahead and add to that, Baltimore.
Okay.
And here's the thing: is that these are your first 2 chords. This is really your introduction as to taking something that it's just 2 fingers, and the mechanics behind that. There's a lot going on, so try not to get frustrated. Just take your time, go slow. Find each of the fingers, apply it to each of the strings and frets slowly. And then, just like Baltimore said, it could take a day, it could take a week, but just take it slow, and then strum, make sure everything is clean. And then when you're satisfied with that, go to the other chord and put your fingers on each of the strings. And it may seem a little awkward at first, but in time, like Baltimore had mentioned, it was muscle memory that gets improved the more that you practice. And then that speed will come. Go ahead, Baltimore. It's all yours.
And then it's also important that we practice those chords, to where we're gonna give it a little gap in here, and our palms not interfering with the bottom string, and that we have our fingers parallel to the guitar. Because if we play it like that, it's got big muffled noises. It's not gonna sound clean. So it's important that we have good grips, good gaps, and the cleaner we practice, the better sounding your chords will be.
Real good. All right, we got two more chords to share with you. So let me go ahead and reshare that screen, and why don't you take us through that, Baltimore?
Okay, absolutely. So there they are, the E major. I think we covered those with the E minor. So these will be our first 2 chords with the fingers 2 and 3 again. And then all we have to do to make the E major chord is drop that 1 finger on the 3rd string, 1st fret.
Real good.
So from the A sus2 that we had earlier, where we just dropped down those two fingers, 2 and 3 down one string, they both fall. They both fall down one string. So then you just make a little gap in there for your pinky. Now we have an A major chord. And then we can practice those also. We can go to E major, to A. Notice how you're starting to get different tunes, different, the guitar is speaking in different tones. So if we go from E minor, I like to strum it 4 times. Then I go to A. Then I go to E minor, E major again. I'm sorry, it's E major. How about we all practice and get used to those? The important thing, again, I'm going to reiterate that we have our fingering straight, our gap in between the neck of the guitar right there, right here. A little bit of a gap. Nice fretting. Each chord should ring out clearly. So that'll be the A major chord. And then we go to the E major chord. And then once you have those 4 chords, it's a set of 4 chords right there, but you can practice. It doesn't have to make much sense now, but as long as you can practice from between the E minor, E major, A sus, A major. If you can practice those, they'll be developed in your mind and your muscle memory, and then you'll automatically go to them when you need them. Is there anything you'd like to add to that there, Tom?
Looking good, man. Hey, let's move on to 2 more new chords. And I know that some of you may be familiar with these chords. This would be G major and D major. So let me show on screen real quick, Baltimore, and then you can take it away.
Okay.
There you go. That's what it looks like in a chord diagram.
All right. So the G major, we're gonna have our first finger on the 2nd fret, 5th string, right there. 2nd finger, 3rd fret, 6th string. That's gonna be on the E note, or on the E string. Then we're gonna have our 4th finger on the 3rd fret, 1st string at the very bottom, and then our 3rd finger on the B string, 3rd fret. That one's a little awkward, but it can be done. And then we're gonna ring out all our strings. Or if that gets a little complicated, a little hard, a little difficult, you can start off by just having that pinky at the very bottom. That's also another version of the G string. If that's easier for you and you get a win out of that, play it like that, because it's gonna get you a win. Later on down the line, you can play it with that 3rd finger on the 2nd fret of the B string, and then it'll sound maybe a little bit more to your liking. But the important thing here, again, is to have your shape in the best position possible, to where all the strings are gonna ring out clearly. And then again, if you want to practice it, 4 down strums is gonna be plenty. And then you can go to your E major if you wanted to. G. Then now you got a series of chords that you can play with. It doesn't necessarily have to be fast. Do them slow at the beginning. Get them right. Get it to ring out right. Switch. Switch again to the 8. if you make a mistake, you'll be able to hear it. Like here, I'm making a mistake on purpose. So you'll hear that string muffled. So all we gotta do there is make some adjustments and then it'll ring out nice. So in order to be able to play the D chord, we're gonna have our first finger. There we go. We're gonna have our first finger on the second fret of the third string. Second string. Wait, was it third string, right? First finger, third string. Second finger on the second fret, first string. And then our third finger, third fret, second string. They should look like this. Right there. And then we want to ring them out. So the D string, we only play from the D string, from the fourth string down. So the E chord, the E string and the A string don't play. Start right here. The nice thing about this chord here is that this finger right here is already in position. If you wanted to switch to the G string, all you have to do is drop the pinky at the very bottom right there and bring these two fingers up. And then you can always go back to the D string again. Questions?
Looks good. Looks good.
Yeah,
All
again,
right.
the important thing is to give it some air in between there so that your palm is not going to mute any of the strings. Your fingers perpendicular to the guitar. And then, like I said earlier, you know, the cleaner you practice, the easier it's going to be for those strings to ring out clearly.
Real good, Baltimore. Well, hey, listen. Thank you. Thank you for taking us through, reading these chord diagrams and also actually applying them to several of the open chords that you're going to be learning. And, I will say this is that we are introduced you. Baltimore took us through two finger chords and then two 3-finger chords. So if you thought that the 2 fingers was a little tough, just be patient. You'll get it. Add that third finger in, the third finger for that chord. The 4 fingers on that G is going to be really challenging. But again, with practice, go slow, take your time, make sure that the strings are clean when you play them, and that the chord itself also sounds clean. And don't settle for anything less than that, because you don't need to cut corners. You want to, make sure that these sound clear and, people can hear exactly what you're playing. And if you're hitting, if you're hitting thuds when you play some of these strings, make sure to place that finger right behind the fret wire. And you want to make sure that there's enough clearance from the other strings, so you're not touching them. Let's move on, because I know we got about 30 minutes left in the session. Some really cool stuff to cover still, and Bruce is still on deck with some of the things that he's going to share as well. It's great seeing everyone. Thank you for hanging out with us on Saturday. Next week is going to be Module 4. But let's get through modules 2 and 3 first. And the next thing that we're going to do is fretting the open chords. And, fretting the open chords and also counting. We're going to try and fret these open chords and then transition. But we're going to do it with the easy chords. All right. Right now I am looking at, I'm looking at slide number 12. Let me just bring that up just really quickly. And then I'll talk to that, and then we'll get right into the exercise. So get your guitars ready. What we're going to do, this is going to be, basically transitioning between the E minor chord, right? Which you just got an introduction on, and then to the A sus2 chord. So really, again, we're just moving the two fingers just down one string. Both are going to go back up and down, up and down. But the thing is that we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and count in 4/4 time, which is 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we're going to play E minor first. Let me make sure let's see here, spotlight, there we go. All right, so for the E minor, we're going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, and on 1, we strum the E minor. And then the next time we count 4 and get to the next 1, we do the A sus2. So let me start, and then you follow. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. How did you guys do? Were you able to keep up? Were the chord changes clean? And if I went too fast, slow it down. So when you practice, slow it down to a pace that's comfortable for you. So that's the first exercise. When you get better, then what we do is we strum on 1 and 2 and still make that transition to 1. So let me demonstrate, and you guys follow. You just kind of join me, all right? So on 1 and 2, it'll be 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. How was that? Was that any harder? Any more challenging? Or was it just as easy? All right. Now, number 3. We're going to strum all 3, 1, 2, and 3. And then by the time we hit 4, you're going to move again to the A sus2 when I count 1. And then we strum that 3 times. And it goes like this. Follow along if you can. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oops. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. How'd you guys do? You're pros at this now, right? You're all guitar players. So awesome. And then, of course, the last one, this is going to be the toughest one, is we're going to do all 4. We're going to strum all 4 beats. All right. And you got to make that transition really quickly. But, again, You have to work up to this. I may be doing this now. Several of you may be doing it as well because you've been playing a little while. But if you're new, I mean, you just have to work through the mechanics of, okay, I got to find comfort between those changes, and it takes a little time. So let's try this. For those of you who want to give it a try, let's do it together. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. A little more challenging for sure, but you made it through. Keep this kind of close to your practice routine because this is going to help you improve chord transitions. Then, as you start to feel more comfortable making these transitions, try the tougher chords. Try that E to an A sus2, or try the E to an A, and some of the other chords that Baltimore covered for you earlier as well. Let me see. I know that there have been some questions, but I don't think there was anything specific to this part of the lesson itself. And I saw that the ASUS came up as a question from Robert. And without having to go too deep, at this level of learning, just know that everything is based on the major scale. Whether it's a minor chord or a major chord or a suspended chord, that's really what it is. It's just some minor modifications, to the way that the major scale is played. But from where we're at right now, we're just throwing that out there because it's an easy chord to play. So hopefully, Robert, that answers your question. Okay, so let's see, what's next? The next, I would like to go ahead and pass the microphone over to Bruce Bjork, who is a longtime Guitarist for Vets instructor. And let's see here. I want to share my screen real quick. Actually, Bruce, let me see. Let me just bring you up real quick. Sorry, I'm having to man the Starship controls here, and I'm not really clear how to go into warp. So give me a second. I want to add the spotlight. There he is. How are you, Bruce?
I'm good. I'm real well.
Are you ready to take control here and talk us through the music?
Well, I can tell you a little bit about myself. I've been an instructor since 2015. I've had 40 plus students graduate. I'm a longtime musician. I mean, I'm in a couple of bands. I play pedal steel, banjo, dobro. And it's keeping me busy, which is a good thing.
You've had a number of students that have come through for lessons. How many have you had?
How many what?
Students have you graduated?
I'm going to say I'm up to like 42 or 43.
You've been through a few.
Yeah, and everyone's different. Everyone has their own, some people progress like this, some like this. I've had quite a few students that have TBI, and I've found some ways to help them memorize what we're doing. I mean, one of the things that I've stressed for all my students is I encourage them to get a notebook and write down any questions that they have, keep track of their practices. I mean, I've been keeping this thing for, oh my God, I've probably filled out 3 of them already in the last 60 years or so, but yeah.
Hey man, listen, I'm going to go ahead and give you control so you can go into the presentation. All right. So
all right.
Take it away.
All right. So if you could pull up that one that has the, so we're going to go through the alphabet here. I don't know if you can, yeah, that's it. So I'm going to kind of walk, I can start there. There are 12 notes in music, and when you think about how much incredible music there is in the world, there's only 12 notes. That's it. So I'm going to kind of walk you through this. So I'm going to start on the fifth string. Open, fifth string open is an A. So fifth string. So then I go to the first fret. It's an A flat. It's an A sharp or a B flat. The second fret is a B. Then we go to a C, and then we go to a C sharp, and then we go to D, D sharp, E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, back to A. And notice there are two. There's always, when you skip the flats and the sharps. So it'd be like, A, B, C. There's no sharp or flat between the B and the C. Why? I have no idea. That's just the way music works. And it's kind of, eventually you want to get to the point where you know where these notes are on the guitar. It's a lot easier on the piano because it's very visual. That that white key that's next to the two black keys is always a C. But on the guitar, the C is on the third fret of string 5. It's on, or A is open fifth string. A is the 7th fret on the 4th string. It's the 2nd fret on string 3. It's the 5th fret on string 1. It's the 2nd fret on string 10. So they're kind of all over the place. Whereas the piano, it's a very, very visual. I hope that makes sense. Now we're going to get into scales, and I am a big fan of scales. Sometimes people say, that's kind of boring. It may be, but if you can learn your scales, and I think one of the diagrams here, I think we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, there's 5, 6 scales. If you can learn those scales, you can play 90% of any song you've ever heard. And I'll give you an example. I'm going to play so here, when you look at the that's called tablature. There are 6, where it says tab, there are 6 lines that represent the 6 strings on your guitar. The line on the bottom is the line that's the closest to you. That's the lowest note. The numbers on those lines tell you where to fret the string. So the first note in that G scale is the 3rd fret on string number 6. You'll also notice underneath those numbers, there's a symbol. And the symbol is, it looks like an N, M or something, and then there's a V. That's the direction that you pick. So that's that first note you pick down, the second note you pick up, the third note you pick down, etc. So down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. And there's a reason for that, because as you progress, I started out playing bluegrass in the 60s, and it's very, very fast. And you can't play fast if you're only picking down all the time. You really have to get used to this down, up, down, So I'm going to walk through that scale very quickly, and I'll give you an example of why they're important. So I'm going to play an ascending G scale. Now I'm going to play it descending. I'm going to play it descending again, but I'm going to change the rhythm. It's joy to the world, and it's just a descending. The other thing, when we're playing these scales, especially in this open position between the nut and the 5th fret, it's important to use your first finger on frets 1 and 2, your middle finger on the 3rd fret, and your ring finger on the 4th fret. And the reason for that is, now when I'm playing these scales, I'm not jumping around. My hand hardly moves at all. that's a G major scale. And if you look at that diagram again, you'll notice I've got the G major scale, I have the E minor scale, I have the C scale, the A minor scale, the A and the D. There's a reason why the E minor scale follows the G scale, and there's a reason why the A minor follows the C scale. So a little bit of theory. If you notice that E minor scale, go over that look at the third note on that E minor scale. The third, it's the string, it's fret 3 on string 6. That's where the G scale starts. And if you follow those notes, they're the same notes as the G scale, except they're played in a different order. So what that is, that's called the relative minor. So G has a relative minor, which is E minor. The C major scale, its relative minor is an A minor. You can actually substitute those notes and those chords. And so it's I don't want to get into too much theory, but that is something that you want to keep in mind. But you can play a G, you can play an E minor. It sounds different, but it's the same notes. Questions?
So, hey, Bruce, just to add to what you're talking about, when we progress further into more techniques of guitar playing, what Bruce is basically showing us is that there are the same notes within two different scales, the major and the relative minor. As time goes on, you're going to want to maybe explore guitar soloing, and the scale shapes and scale patterns that are being used right now, whether you apply it in the major setting, happy sounding, or a minor setting, which is a little more sad, same scales, it's just a different starting point.
Yeah, and one of the things, when I talk about the relative minor, for example, the D major, the relative minor to D is B minor, which is a hard chord. It's a bar chord. Now you're thinking about the song "Puff the Magic Dragon." Puff the Magic Dragon, B minor, live by the sea. Well, instead of playing a B minor, you can play a D, which is B minor is the relative minor to D. So, Puff the Magic Dragon, live by the sea. So it sounds very similar.
Really good. All right.
I'm sure you all remember Puff the Magic Dragon.
Right. Hey, so I'm not seeing any questions. Let's see. This is pretty intriguing stuff. The major scale itself, it's the root of a lot of the variables. I think this came up from Robert's question. I don't know. Yeah, that's intriguing to me, is that you're able to go ahead and modify the major scale in different ways to come up with these different tones. So like the minor chord. So we know that the major chord that Bruce has just shown us. But what happens when you want to get a sadder sound? Well, you take that major chord and you flatten some of those notes, and that would be flatting the third note. And I believe it's the sixth and the seventh note of a major scale. And then you're playing the minor scale. And again, that's going into a little more advanced.
There was a question which I can answer. If you look at that those scale patterns, there are 4 measures on that first row. You've got 2 measures of G and 2 measures of E minor. The vertical lines separate what's called a measure. So what I'm doing is that first measure, I'm playing a G scale, starting on the 6th string. And then that second measure, I'm playing a G scale. I'm also starting on the G. So that second fret, and the same thing with the E. So that's why they repeat. I'm just repeating. I'm starting over again in the next octave. Does that answer your question?
All right. Let me stop that. Okay. All right. Well, I'll tell you what, Bruce, thank you for this walk through the musical alphabet and the major scale itself, giving us some demonstrations on the relative minor. We are down to the last 5 minutes, and I want to make sure that we get in all the questions. Let's see here. I think we have all the questions. Well, I hope this has been a helpful last 60 minutes, an informative approach at looking at making chords reading charts, understanding a little bit more about the scale, a little bit about practice. Let's see. I know we've got a couple more instructors with us, and I'm going to just quickly unmute both Melissa and Dave, and thank you for jumping in with us, you guys. If there's anything you'd like to add, feel free to go ahead and unmute and add whatever it is that your thoughts are that might be able to help out the the training that we did today.
Hey, Tom, thanks. And I really think Baltimore did a really nice job of going really slow, which I'm not good at doing, and going through the chords nicely. And I think I would add, and I'm not saying you're wrong, I like to teach the A chord like he was doing the three fingers this way in the pinky. I just like doing like I got called a triangle with your index finger on top. And those two, the only reason why you can switch to an E without having to move your index finger. And then also to a D. But it's not right or wrong. It's just whichever way you're comfortable with. And other people, you might want to try it that way. Kind of like when you do a D, you go to an A, you can leave your index finger where it is, which is nice. And then when you go to an E, you just got to slide it up one fret. But great job, Baltimore, and thanks so much to Bruce, who I know is really good at breaking down the technical stuff. But and like you said, Tom, practice and go slow. Take your serious time with it, and don't watch any videos of 10-year-old kids playing Stairway to Heaven solos. It'll just drive you nuts. Stay away from those things.
Okay, thank you, Dave. And listen, that pretty much brings us to the end now. Which chord progression is next might determine your fingering. Right, exactly. So it really depends. Pick a song, and learn the chords, and you're going to figure out, okay, the quickest way to make that chord transition is really up to you. It's very personal. I know for me, it's kind of like, this is the discussion that Baltimore and I had. It's kind of like, well, the materials say play E minor one way, but I play it this way. It's all very personal to you. So it's the quickest, cleanest way between transitions is really the way to go. If you have too much movement going on in your fretting hand, it can get pretty frustrating because you may not get there fast enough. And if you play with a band, they'll look at you. It's like, they'll give you that look. But if it's just for yourself, go slow, start slow, figure out what's easiest for you when you make those chord transitions, and then just do it. All right. That brings us to the end of our presentation for today. We will be back here next week, Saturday. So 10 a.m. Pacific, bring your guitars, make sure you tune up, and I'll make sure to send the invitation out for you to go ahead and click the link and provide you with the materials. So thanks again from Guitars for Vets and Cav Arts. You all have a great rest of your weekend. Hope to see you next week.
Thank you all.